Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the February 22nd, 2023 Board of Finance regular meeting. I will call this meeting to order and we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our next agenda item is public speak. Do we have any members of the public that would care to speak and address the Board of Finance? Anybody would care to just go ahead and unmute yourself and just speak up, and we'll Eric will take us in turn. Just let us know. Okay, hearing none, I guess the next thing we'll do, we're going to alter this a little bit. We did not have any discussion on the agenda item specifically for adding or changing the agenda. So Linda, you said you had an item you wanted to add.
Right, I want to go over the AHM budget. They had their presentation for the Oversight Committee this afternoon.
Okay, do you want to make a motion then to add a new item under new business? This would be item 6C, which would be the AHM
Oversight Committee
meeting. No, yeah. So just present the information from that.
Right.
Okay. So Linda's making a motion to add a new business agenda item 6C, which would be review of the AHM executive. What exactly is it? Title?
Oversight Committee meeting.
Oversight Committee meeting. Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. And so Louise seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Motion passes. We'll add that as item 6C. Okay. Any other additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Go ahead.
Excuse me, Mark, it's Joey. I'm sorry, I'm having a lot of computer trouble tonight, so I
Okay.
apologize for being late. I guess if I'm allowed to address this, I just want to ask a question on our new business with discussing the candidates for the open Board of Finance position. And like you said, am I to understand that we are voting on a member tonight, or are we just opening? You know, we have a candidate that is submitted, which is great. We're going to meet him. I see that he's in attendance. We need to make a statement now of whether choosing tonight or not, or we can discuss that when we get to.
We can discuss it when we get to that point. We're not required to vote. We had only one candidate express interest. So I think it prudent to meet the candidate and give us an opportunity to ask him any questions. At that time, can choose to go into executive session, at which point we can discuss whether we would seat the candidate, request additional candidates, you know, to further the process, or what we choose to do. So it can be any of the above. We're not obligated to make a selection today.
Right, and it's the way it was worded on the agenda. I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it does say to select the board member, but it's not technically required. I think we have
And my only thought to this, saying it out loud, is only because it was such a short time. And I'm glad that we have a person present and interested, so thank you.
Okay. Other points about the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to the town administrator's report. Eric, the floor is yours.
All righty, so I threw an administrative report in the packet. I'm not going to go over most of the stuff because you've had it to read. We did submit a trip grant application for road work over on the northern side of town. My understanding is the CROG received 8 applications, of which, so they have to approve basically 4 to send on to the DOT. So we don't know yet whether we're even going to get out of the first stage, but hopefully we will. And that's one's ongoing. There will be a grant submitted next week for a rec trails grant. That's the one that we also approved at town meeting. So far, we've had a pretty mild winter, so we haven't spent a whole lot in public works overtime or in the salt budget. So that has been good. It looks like starting next week or the week after, they'll be drilling the holes in Long Hill Road for the design of the pilings for the replacement bridge at Long Hill Road. So hopefully that will take place in a week or two and get that stage out of the way, because that kind of holds up the 30% design stage of that. We still have the full amount of the American Rescue Act funding designated for the community center. So that we had another contractor meeting today. We are pushing it, but it looks like we should be successful in keeping that total budget under $1 million, which will keep us from having to pay prevailing wage. So that's certainly our intention. I have given my first draft of the budget to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen is holding their first budget meeting tomorrow. So they have one scheduled on the 23rd, the 27th, March 6th, March 13th. And it is their intention, at least at this point, to finalize their cut of the budget on the 13th and get it in the hands of the Board of Finance. They did reserve the 20th, 3/20 also, if they hadn't reached a conclusion by then. But the goal is to get the budget in your hands basically on March 14th, which gives you, 6 weeks or so before you have to consider any kind of meeting. I am planning on going on vacation from April 19th to the 25th. I'm trying to schedule that because it gets me through most of the budget process. So both Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance will have made most of their decisions, but before we get into the actual town meeting portion, because that's variable. So you got to figure, depending on how bad the budget year goes, sometime between May and the end of June, I'm pretty much committed to being around for the town. So I'm planning on getting away for a week before that happens.
Eric, I assume you're not going ice boating this week?
No, I will not be ice boating, unfortunately. Maybe next year, I'm hoping.
I'm just being a rotten egg.
Yeah, you're not the only person that's expressed that concern. Let's see. So my suggestion is the Board of Finance starts considering dates in March and April and pen in now when you want the budget, the Board of Finance's budget meetings to be. And then as much guidance as you give me ahead of time as to what you want to have presented and when would be helpful. That's basically it for my report, unless you all have specific questions for me.
Any questions for Eric? Okay, well, hearing none, I guess we will go on to the next item, which is the standing item we'll have for a while, which is our draft budget. The agenda item under there is the budget meeting schedule. So that is a good segue into what we have to do here. So Eric, thanks for clarifying that that was the Board of Selectmen's schedule that was listed in our packet, although it was a little confusing because the 13th said March 3rd rather than the 13th. So the typo there kind of just, the dates were out of whack and I couldn't really figure that out.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's quite all right. So this is the Board of Selectmen's meeting. They plan to have the budget available for us on the 13th, which means, and so looking back at last year and just throwing this out there for the Board of Finance, typically what we did is every week, we set up a meeting. Once we had the budget in hand, we set up a meeting every week through the month of March into April to review and discuss the budget. Every Wednesday at 7 p.m. So basically keeping the same time frame as the same date of the week and the time as our normally scheduled meetings, because that seemed to work best for everyone. I would propose that we do the same. If we were to follow that logically from the Board of Selectmen schedule, we would have a meeting maybe starting potentially the 15th of March, which would be the first couple of days after they plan to release the budget. If they don't, we could always cancel that meeting. The 22nd, we have a regular Board of Finance meeting, and we're including a presentation from the RAM board. And then followed by the 29th, April 5th, April 12th, and then April 19th. But at some point, we also need to schedule that town budget hearing. And Eric, I was looking over the budget plan that I think you had shared December, maybe.
Yep.
And it wasn't really clear to me, but you were talking about maybe having the town budget hearing that said the 29-24 of April. But at the same time, I think there was concern that if we didn't pass the budget on to the, pass a recommended budget by the 24th, then we wouldn't be able to have the town budget meeting on May 1st, which was your original plan. So that would mean that we would have to have the town budget hearing prior to the 24th.
Yes, you could certainly do it. I mean, you can do it kind of whenever you want. And remember too, you don't have to, you certainly can, considering the last few years, there have been very little commentary actually received by the Board of Finance at those meetings. There's nothing that says you can't adopt and at that same, in other words, do one public hearing and then immediately send it to the town meeting. You certainly have that right if you so choose. You don't, in other words, you don't need 2 meetings if you don't want it.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. I'm looking at the calendar. Our regularly scheduled meeting would be the 26th. Now, we could certainly, but we would need to do the 24th, you're saying, really, to get have the town meeting scheduled for May 1st, assuming we could agree on a budget to be passed on.
I mean, ideally, if you want to do it, so the thing about doing it that way is it gives you the maximum number of chances to fail before you have to set a mill rate without, and that's kind of a defensive move, so
Sure.
you don't have to do that if you don't want to. But that does give you the maximum number of days possible.
So, I mean, we could bump our regular meeting up a week, right, to the 19th, and then do the hearing on the 24th.
Or we could just do the hearing on the 19th.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and then we could just do it that, have it that way. There's nothing saying it has to be on a Monday or a Tuesday or anything else.
Yeah,
So I guess, yep.
sorry, I'm done.
So I guess what I would suggest then is that we tentatively schedule budget workshop meetings March 15. March 22 is our regular meeting, March 29, April 5th, April 12th, and then the budget hearing on the 19th. And then you're saying, Eric, that really, and I agree with this as far as I know, as long as it's on the agenda, there's no reason we couldn't vote to pass that budget on to the town meeting, right?
Correct.
Mark,
Yeah,
sorry that I can't appear. It's hard to just break in. I do like the idea of starting our budget meetings on the 15th. That's perfect after Board of Selectmen. Sometimes I think we get going too soon. The only drawback I have with that is we just, we have no idea what kind of budget we're gonna get. It could be something that does bring forth a lot of opinions from the public. So it's just putting a lot of eggs in one basket to have it hear from the public, whether there's a lot of good or bad either way, for, again, and not having enough time to really rationalize. That's my thought. It doesn't give us time to contemplate the budget for a little bit, to decide, to factor in what the public brings to the table. Unless they come to meetings and offer some suggestions then, but I know that the process for our town is to hear the public. That's my only thing. I'm not opposed. I get the time crunch and everything.
mhm.
But I think a lot of times I find, being on this committee for a couple of years, we're anticipating so much ahead of time. I think maybe we should just let the process play out. If we're able to send it, we can. If not, we're always like, okay, well, then they might not like this, or they, I think we have to kind of go through the process to see how it goes this year.
So what, are you proposing something alternative, Joanne?
I don't have a calendar in front of me just because I'm having so many computer problems. That's all I'm saying is, the regular, whatever was proposed, I feel like we're pushing it up. Is that correct? In order to get to that May 1st meeting. So I guess we always do have meetings that early, that time.
Well, we don't have to decide on the town meeting yet. And
Oh,
I would
good. Yeah, I feel
propose-
like we're always, way ahead of.
I
When
think
we
the
don't
idea is
even-
to give us the flexibility that if we can get it in and get that done, get that meeting for May 1st, that's great.
Right.
Gotcha. I guess I'm always listening with the ear thinking we're making the decision. So we're just taking suggestions. Yeah, I'm all for starting our budget meetings, the 15th, making sure we get the presentation, get this. I see that members of the school board are on the meeting tonight, making sure we get lined up to have them present to us, or at least go over their budget if they don't mind doing that. We have Ram lined up and, take it from there.
Yeah, so, I think our goal for tonight should be simply to schedule the budget workshop meetings so that we can plan our lives around it. And our work around it.
I'm happy to make a motion, Mark, if,
Yeah, I think that's fine. The actual hearing does not need to be scheduled just yet, I think. We can always change that or vote in one of our working meetings. We certainly have time to do that. And the town budget meeting does not need to be scheduled, so. Makes sense.
So in further record, the important milestone that you have to hit per the charter is in the first 10 business days of May, which would be between May 2nd and May 13th, you have to have the first town-wide budget meeting. That's your
Right.
really
Right.
First target. And then depending on whether that passes or fails, everything adjusts from that.
Right. So, and I think the schedule Mark laid out, which I'm going to make a motion on right now, tease us up to hit that window, and maybe even sneak in under that window if we're able to, but it doesn't mean that we can't adjust. So I move that we have Board of Finance meetings March 15th, March 22nd, March 29th, April 5th, 12th, and 19th.
I second it.
Okay, any discussion further?
I
Again,
just
we
have-
can always change this. This just gives us a preliminary schedule to work with. It puts some meetings on the calendar. We can cancel them, we can add them if we need to.
Okay, so I just have one question for the board then. Are you anticipating these will be all on Zoom? Or these will be hybrid, or these will be in person?
I would anticipate Zoom unless somebody feels differently.
I'm
I would
happy
like
to do-
Zoom, yeah.
Yeah. I'm happy to do Zoom too. The only thing I could think of that we might want to do if we want, we could consider if we're going to do a hybrid meeting, say on the April 19th meeting, we want to do our town. Sorry, I forget what it's
The
called.
budget
exactly.
here.
Presentation, budget hearing. We could do that one hybrid if we wanted to, if we thought that that would get more public engagement. But the rest of them, I would say Zoom, yeah.
And the hearing is just an opportunity for residents to voice their input, really. Doesn't, there's no presentation necessarily required. We will have gone through a lot of workshops, we can have the draft budget available for them, but there won't be any large formal presentation or discussion. Okay, any more discussion over the proposed budget workshop schedule? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, everybody. All right, let's move on then to old business. Item 5A is the fiscal year 21-22 audit status and update on the town finance department. Eric, we'll cover that.
So, yeah, we're still actually tracking fairly well. Cheryl was in here for pretty much half the day yesterday. So we have given her the capital asset inventory for the town minus one item or one department. And we have given them pretty much all the information she needs. We sat down, we discussed. There were some questions about some of the various different funds and how the funds map into the audit. So I spent a bunch of time with her addressing that. We have pretty much made the conversion to QuickBooks at this point in the finance office. We did have a slight hiccup because we ordered checks that were QuickBooks stock, but we didn't have them printed with the town's account number on them. So we have to separately print them before we use them, which is a slight annoyance, but we have a workaround for that. Other than that, we should be on track to turn it over to the auditor within the next couple of weeks. So we're pretty close at this point. Other questions from the board regarding that?
Okay, doesn't sound like it. How's your staff searching going?
Not great. So we did line up 4 candidates to interview. Only one of the 4 actually showed up. So, which has been kind of interesting. Over the last year, we've had a super high fraction of no-shows, even when you confirm they're going to be there, which, it's a good job market when people don't even bother to tell you they're not showing up for their interview. So since then, we've gotten 4 more candidates. We're switching stream real quick, and we're just basically doing a phone interview right away. And then scheduling them just to gauge interest, to kind of weed them out, so we're not, because one of the problems we're having obviously with Indeed is you get a lot of people that are tire kickers that aren't really all that serious, and just aren't showing up. So we're working to address that, but we certainly don't have a candidate lined up at the moment.
Okay, all right. Well, disappointing, but it's the way it goes, I guess, these days. So, any other questions for Eric on those topics?
Yeah, oh, am I allowed to comment on that at all, or?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you, Eric. So I did volunteer to be on the committee. And I, have a big interest in getting a good person. They do all, what's interesting is all the candidates do look good on paper, which is key. We're hopeful that the next batch, with the pre-screening calls, engaging the level of interest rather than just, maybe some emails or something back and forth. So we're hopeful. I mean, at least there's interest in the position. I want to be a little more positive than Eric makes it sound. I mean, it sounds like there's, steady interest. You just gotta kind of, like he said, find the right candidate. So the search goes on.
Okay. All right, thanks, guys. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we will move on to new business then. This is item 6A. So we have one candidate, Brian Briggs. Thank you for attending tonight, Brian. Brian had submitted a letter of interest, which I believe went to the entire board. I hope you all got that and had a chance to kind of read through it. We did not receive any other letters of interest. So that's Brian is our only candidate at this time. So typically, Brian, what we do is just give you a few minutes to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and kind of your background, and then the Board of Finance members can ask any questions that they may have, and you get an opportunity to answer. So welcome. Why don't you go ahead and give us the elevator speech?
All right. Thanks, Mark. Hello,
A
everyone.
little more than that, if you like. So.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to hear me. So my name is Brian, and I've lived in Andover for 14 years. I moved to Connecticut 15 years ago, and once we moved here, it was a great place to live and wonderful place to raise our children, and I really enjoy it here. Currently, I am a health teacher. I'm endorsed in physical education, and I hope to teach more physical education soon. But that's a little bit about my background, and yeah, I also coach Andover and the school that I work at in Wyndham. Yeah, and that's about it about me personally. But yeah, as far as the Board of Finance, I've always been a strong proponent of community support, and would love to be a member of the Board of Finance.
Okay. Thank you. Board members have any questions for Brian?
I have a question for Brian.
Sure.
I apologize that I can't come through. This computer's crazy, but Brian, have you followed, through the years, the process of the budget and what the Board of Finance does? I mean,
Yes, sorry, I had trouble hearing, but yes, I have. I've been to a few budget meetings, some of them recently and in the past.
Okay,
I have a question.
go ahead, Louise.
Hi, Brian. What do you feel is the most important aspect of the Board of Finance? Most important, like mission statement or?
Most importantly, I would say, just be open to the community and also to all the parties involved, and listen to everybody and try to do your best to listen to everybody and then come up with, the budget and stuff like that, other parts of the budget, and, I can't say that I know everything about the budget, but I strive to learn, about the Board of Finance, but I strive to learn as much as possible. And, I'm a quick learner, open-minded, and, I think that would be a great fit for the board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
A lot of us have come to the Board of Finance with little experience in it, and we've grown. And you don't need too much experience. It's nice to see a little bit of everybody in there. Everyone has their own little aspects and points to pick out. So it's not really, you have to have a lot of finance background. It's more of teamwork, basically
Definitely.
listening and teamwork and things like that. So thank you.
I totally agree. And I've had previous experience on boards, the Board of Rec, Andover basketball boards, and boards at my school. So, I know what it takes to, be part of a team and group dynamics, how group dynamics work. And, I think that's super important to work together on the board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Sorry, I had another question. I hope I come through. Do you have the, obviously, we're getting into our busy season, as you saw with getting our schedule together. Do you
Correct.
have, you wouldn't have obviously put your name in if you didn't think you have the time, but we're here to ask you questions, so do you
No,
feel like?
I was
Yeah.
listening to the schedule early. I'm sorry.
No, you're
you-
fine.
And I could totally make every meeting, and, I would definitely make it a priority to be on the board.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Brian? Okay, I think the fact that he said he's been to a couple of budget meetings and still wants to be on the Board of Finance speaks to at least courage, if nothing else. So I would propose that if nobody has any other questions for Brian, that we could move into executive session to discuss our next steps. Of course, it'd be great to have 4 or 5 or 6 qualified candidates, but we're fortunate to get people step up and volunteer as it is. So thanks, Brian. If you can hang tight, we'll, if you choose, but we'll move into executive session. Sorry that took a while for everybody. We just got into a lot of questions about procedures and what we should be doing as a board in this situation. But Rob, are you back with us? We have all the board members. After taking a quick break, we'll just wait a moment.
Sorry, guys. Back.
Okay, you're back. We have Louise, we have Joanne, Bill, Linda. Okay. Okay, I think we have everybody. Thanks everybody for waiting once again. I appreciate your patience here. Sometimes that's how it goes. So thank you, Brian. Would anybody like to make motions about the membership?
All right, I'll move that we seat Brian on the board as our 7th member. Just to clarify, he wouldn't be a member unless and until if he is voted on, he needs to get sworn in, right?
Correct.
Okay, sorry,
Correct.
that little commentary there, but yes, I move that we seat Brian.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second.
Second it.
Okay, I think I got Linda first. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. So Brian, welcome to the Board of Finance. We'll be in touch with some more details, but you will need to be sworn in officially. However, again, we appreciate your volunteering to serve. We'll relay information for you. I'll forward some stuff, especially once you get your town email up and running. We'll have to get that set up. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, so we will move on to agenda item 6B, which is the policy on the financial report. So Eric, do you want to explain this one?
Sure. So, obviously, we had a fairly negative audit finding last year. Among the faults that we had were lack of fiscal reporting policies. So, the treasurer and I discussed this about a month ago, and she gave me a list and a frequency for when she felt she needed information in order to finish the reconciliation and present to the board. This is given that you are continuing to use the third Wednesday of the month. So this is based on providing the information to you as a board. So the policy basically says all those entities have to provide the data that are listed, and that the entities can basically be 1 month behind on reconciliation. So in other words, when they turn over the data to you on the 5th of a month, they're not reconciling the month that ended 5 days ago. They're reconciled through 35 days ago, which she felt was a reasonable window. And then that also means the treasurer will have the data by the 5th. She's got 10 days to process and make sure that she's ready for the board meeting. And then on the 15th, which is about when the town normally does its ACH payments, we just say that by the 15th of the month, we have to have done all the ACH payments, submitted the RAM levy, the AES levy, the payment to Murph, and the RAM Insurance Consortium bill. So that gives us what our window is to send this. And then there's also for some of the boards and commissions that are maintain smaller dollar values that the town funds just a couple of times a year, like the Board of Fire Commissioners, for instance, and also the library board. There will be quarterly reporting results. So basically every quarter, because they have a lot less transactions, we're not requiring them submitting every month to reconcile. We're asking to submit every quarter to reconcile. And that would be the library board, the Andover Volunteer Fire Department, the senior lunch program, and the senior trips fund. Will have to do that quarterly. And then prior to getting their second funding allotments, they have to show the town the books for up to that point. That way we can never get more than a quarter out of date on the small funds, and we should never be more than a month out of date on the town and school board funds. And then we also went over what the key dates are for financial data reporting. Again, these are to address concerns that Mike, our auditor, had. And that is basically May 15th, we send out letters to all the creditors asking for all bills to be submitted by July 1. And then after June 1st, we don't do any encumbrances except for actual purchase orders and order slips or purchased services. And they then have to have an invoice dated no later than June 30th. So it's in the right fiscal year. And any good or service not ordered by June 31st does not apply to the current fiscal year. This gets us away from, we have on a number of fronts have had a bad habit of still continuing spending money off of fiscal year far after the fiscal year has ended. And I put myself in the guilty category for that also. So I'm not just blaming other people regarding that. June 31st is the end of the fiscal year. Before July 1st, we distribute the worksheets for capital assets, and we request them back by August 15th for all departments. If everybody's following the capital asset policy, they would have been supplying that information to the Board of Finance all along as the capital assets, are purchased. So it shouldn't be that big a deal. by August 15th, each department signs off on the capital asset list. That way, that's never going to be a holdup for the audit. Remember, lack of proper capital asset reporting was another audit finding of ours. 15 days after the fiscal year is over on July 15th, supply a list of all the outstanding checks and encumbrances to the
Eric.
treasurer.
Eric,
Yep,
if I could interrupt you, so basically just to kind of summarize, this is a proposed policy from you and the treasurer.
yep,
Okay, so you're asking for the Board of Finance to review this, and I don't know, if it's been shared with the Board of Education separately or the other entities yet. And what we need to do is review this, make any amendments or changes, and then this will be, I guess, in theory, under our purview to approve the policy, correct?
yeah, and I'm assuming that you will probably approve it before the end of this fiscal year, but I'm not anticipating you're going to approve it at, anytime really soon, because I think it should need review, and I'm sure the school and other entities are going to want to weigh in on that. And yes, a copy of this was provided to the superintendent. It was provided to the chair of the Board of Fire Commissioners. It was provided to the library, and it was provided to Carol Lee, who oversees the senior trips program now. So they got it the same day you got it. So they had every bit of time that you've had to review this.
Which is not a lot, right?
Yeah, and I'm not,
Here too.
we're not expecting, nobody's expecting a decision. If you take
Got it.
3 months to make a decision, that's up to you. Or you as a Board of Finance could decide not to have a policy. But I think you probably should have a policy because that directly relates to, one of our audit findings, which is lack of policies on timelines.
Yep.
Right.
So I'd say I 100% agree that we should have the policy, and this one, it needs some work. There's typos and some incorrect information. The end of the fiscal year is actually June 30th. There is no June 31st. So just stuff like that. There's a couple typos. The email addresses there's a typo and stuff, a couple spelling things. So yeah, that would need to be cleaned up anyway. But obviously the substantive effort here would be to review the policy, just on a cursory review prior to the meeting. And then, from your summary right there, I mean, a lot of what is in here makes sense. It's reasonable in my view. And I think that it would, the general outlines of this for all the town entities would make a lot of sense. Just that's my
Excuse
4
me,
cents on it.
excuse me, Mark. This is Terry Smith.
Terry, hold on.
Sure.
We're not, yeah, okay, we'll go ahead and recognize you. It's not really public comment time, but if you have a quick comment, we'll let this go. Yeah,
Sure, just a quick comment, and thank you for allowing me to do this. I'm new to the Board of Ed. I've only been there a little less than 2 months. And Eric realizes that, we have that the Board of Ed writes board policy, and nobody's really had a chance to review it. And I appreciate any time you could give us to do that. I would appreciate that.
sure, yeah, I don't think that we'll probably be, as Eric anticipated, we're not going to be approving this policy tonight. I would guess, I don't speak for the board in its entirety, but okay, thanks. Yeah.
Art, can I add a comment too?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I just wanted to take a minute to thank Eric for putting a document together. I understood that he was just getting something out there based on working with Cheryl so closely, and Cheryl realizing and Eric together realizing that there really hasn't been any deadlines or a schedule. Yeah, so I appreciate the document, and I had noticed the June 30th thing too. But I'm glad that we'll have time. We'll have to read through it. Like Terry Smith just said, they'll look through it and possibly have comments that they want to say. But there are a lot of things in here that I am glad to see, because I think as a member last year, I did bring up the June 30th spending, you know, that usually you're done with your spending in the fiscal year that your budget is running. So that's good to see. Yeah, so overall, I think it's a good to have a document in place. I'm glad Cheryl's on board and getting things, you know, worked on and giving some feedback and schedules and a workable schedule for the town offices, along with everything that they have to take care of so that we can do a better job going forward. So thank you, Eric, for taking time to get the document to us.
Any other members of the board have questions for Eric on this or general discussion? All right, you know, Eric, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I didn't really think it was, you know, the time. I think at this point, we want to go through in the detail here. But if the board members want to review it, I'm more than happy to go through it and well, I guess we'd say if we choose, we can continue the discussion over it. I just think it would be better if we had a little time to kind of review it. We just got it yesterday, I think. So we really haven't had time to kind of read through it. So. Other comments from the board members?
I agree with you. More time.
Agreed.
More time.
Okay. Eric, any other comments on that in general?
No, I'm not expecting you to adopt it in the next month or two.
Wouldn't be a bad thing, but we're gonna need to get input, obviously, and take a look at it. All right. Okay, if we have no other discussion, we'll move on to agenda item 6C. This was the one that Linda asked be added to the agenda for tonight, and this is the AHM Oversight Committee. Linda, you want to give us a review of that?
Hi, yeah, Tressa spoke for about a half an hour. I mean, what can you say? AHM is awesome. We're lucky to have a nonprofit. Andover's increase is, let me see, 97, well, the increase is $3,596. The amount they want in the budget is $97,002. That's 16.27%, the average. They're, as far as the three towns are concerned, the total addition for the three towns is only $22,105. And she talked about, they actually have a waiting list of clients they've hired or are going to hire a new full-time therapist. And there's still a waiting list. And even with the full-time therapist, you know, that's going to cost them like $100,000, but the three towns, the cost is only going up $22,000. So again, because they're a nonprofit, we're lucky.
Mark, if you'd like to see the actual budget numbers, I can share my screen and I have the budget formulas there from AHM if you would like.
I wouldn't mind seeing them if they're there, just
Sure.
review and you can share them, yeah.
Okay, so this should show a comparison of this year versus last year. And I might be able to blow it up a little bit.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, could you blow that up?
I'm leaning
Thank you.
into the screen, taking my glasses off.
That better?
Yes, thank you.
I think the bottom lines are cut off though. It's the only problem.
Well,
It's okay. You know.
tell me when and I'll scroll up for you.
Eric, are you able to go to full screen? Do you have that ability to go? Maybe not.
Well, I'm seeing it full screen.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
I
Okay.
am
I think
too.
it's a function of the share screen thing.
Okay.
All right, so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to go through. Obviously, it takes some time to get through, but this is good. All right.
And I apologize for not getting this ahead of you, this meeting, but we only had this meeting this afternoon. So,
Yeah, it's not, I think dire. We get this earlier. This is,
Right.
it's good to, it's a fairly simple budget as usual. It's pretty
And-
straightforward.
so what I did want to say to the Board of Finance is that unlike a lot of other budgets, this budget, the AHM budget is actually, because they are the town's youth services bureau.
Mhm.
And there is a member of the Board of Finance and a member of the Board of Ed, which I represent in this case, that votes on the annual budget. So it is approved, unlike other entities which just tell us what they're going to charge us. We have to actually approve AHM's budget. Now, we could do that at this meeting. The earlier the budget is put in place, the earlier all three towns know what to be budgeting for. But you're not obligated to vote because you're just getting the information. And I recognize some of you may not be comfortable or want to vote on this today. So that's my spiel, if that makes sense. The other thing I think is interesting when you look at this is combined between the between three towns, there's somewhere around $600,000, a little under $600,000 of their budget comes from the towns. The other $1.2 million is grants and fundraising. So we're only paying a third of their budget, as a town. The rest is just because they've been very successful. There's both state funding and then grant funding, and then other monies raised.
Okay.
Yeah, if we had to do this on our own, there's no way we could do it for this cost.
We have to provide the service, right? Isn't there a statute requiring?
Yeah,
it?
state statute
So
says
just
we have to have.
It's
a youth
really,
center.
really a good program for us.
It is, and I think I say this every year. My kids took advantage of AHM when they were little, and it was a very good thing. So, I'm always been very, very much in favor of this program.
Yeah.
There's one line item that just jumps out at me. I don't necessarily think we have to do a deep dive on it. There's a really big, big in terms of percentage change in the liability insurance. Did something bad happen? Because it's $3,600 last year and 12,000 projected. It's almost 6910 there, liability insurance, and I'm just wondering if something went
No, I
sideways.
think it's the other way around, isn't it, Rob? I mean, it actually
I'm
went
sorry.
down.
I thought it was. I need the headers
No,
again.
it
Yeah,
definitely
it's
went
down.
not
Yeah.
down.
No,
Yeah,
it's up.
actually a net positive, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Leave it to the insurance guy to check the insurance. line
that's
first.
exactly why I was here today. But correct me if I'm wrong, Eric. This is a little confusing in that the new numbers are on the left, and last year's on the right.
Correct. So
Yeah,
it is a little odd in that
Yeah.
sense.
Just so
Um,
everybody's clear.
And
Okay,
you are
they-
correct.
They initially sent it out to the boards with just the coming year. And I actually emailed Tressa last night. So she did it this morning real quick, added
Yep.
last year's budget.
Totally understand.
You'd
It's just,
just be staring at 1 year.
yeah, and I appreciate that. I think it's great to see the years side by side. It's just, I think a lot of people, you just intuitively expect
Got it.
to go left to right. That's all. So of course, the
Is it
insurance guy
consistent?
focuses on this.
Okay.
It jumped out at me, as a big jump, and I'm just wondering myself, gosh, did they
It is
have
a
a
big jump.
name or something? I don't have an objection. I just, it popped.
Hmm.
Can I
Okay,
go
great.
ahead and say something?
Yep, go ahead, John.
So I always am a big fan and a proponent of AHM as well. I'm just going to ask though, it's hard for me to see this well. on my computer. And we know it's going to be part of our budget. It usually is. I'm gonna ask if we can get this sent to us so that I can take just a closer look. Again, it's not anything negative toward them. I always just like to be prepared and take a look at it before just approving it, getting it, being able to see it on the screen.
Yeah.
I don't know how, how anyone else feels about it, but since we just added it to the agenda tonight, we're just seeing it on the screen. I can't see my screen too well tonight.
Yeah,
agree.
I think that we probably would want to have the opportunity to review it with a little more time. And so I don't really see, as long as that's not going to create some undue hardship. I mean, unless wouldn't foresee us having much issue with this.
Right.
Going
I
forward.
agree with that. I just think we all should just take a look at it. We know it's going to be a line item on the budget. Like Eric had said, the only benefit would be the towns could zero in. We're just at the very, very beginning. So I don't see it as too big of a negative to hopefully. That's
I
my
agree. I
2
think we should all get it. I agree. That's a good point.
Yeah.
The
And
other
we
big change is-
don't need to wait till our next full meeting to pass this. We could do it at one of our special budget workshop meetings. So,
Right.
so
Um,
it's not like we have to wait an entire month to get there.
Right,
Linda, I
I think
don't-
the sooner the
okay.
better for them.
Linda, I don't know if you know the answer to this question too. The other big change, which is actually a negative change, it's a drop in contractor services. Were we outsourcing a bunch? Are we basically hiring a therapist? But in last year we were scrambling. So
Yeah, I think so, because the salary went up even more. If you look at the salary line.
is that how that balances?
Because it's hidden.
Right, they've hired somebody, they're hiring more people. The caseload is just unbelievable since COVID. And they
Oh,
aren't
yeah.
even, she said, advertising. I mean, these are just referrals from the school.
That jibes with what I'm hearing. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, my sister's a psychologist. And she's been just, they're all turning away work. They all have a pretty enormous waiting list.
and Tressa was saying it used to be they saw client, they call them clients, like every other week. Now there's patients that they see every week, and some patients they're even seeing twice a week.
Yep.
No, things are changing.
Indeed. That makes sense to me. So thanks. Just whenever you see big swings, I just like to understand them. But that's exactly what I was expecting to hear. That, we're basically bringing someone in-house rather than contracting out or something. That makes sense.
But then if you when you get the income column and you look at the income for this year under program revenue says up 237,000, and
Yeah, I
program
noticed that.
revenue
Yeah.
is also the insurance payments for clients.
Yep.
Okay. Which tells you something about their services needed right there.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, anybody have any other questions other than the recommendation to defer a vote to our next meeting?
Can I, only because it's my first pass going through this. So this is something that we really don't have a choice. We have to be in AHM. We have to have this as part of our budget. Do we really actually have any input into any of these line items or not? Or is it just a review for our,
Well,
how do we act on this information is, I guess, my question.
So if the board felt, for instance, that the overall budget increase was too high, you would simply empower, in this case, Linda, because she's your rep, to go back to them and say, Andover feels this budget is too high and, we want you to trim it. That's certainly been done before by AHM. And it usually kicks off a round of adjustments and to figure out what they can cut and what they can do. Most of the time, all three towns except AHM, just simply because the towns recognize that, their portion of the bill is only about 30% of the total income. So,
Gotcha.
Right,
I
and
just wondered-
we're a piece of the 30.
Yeah.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Linda, I have a
And
question.
in our case, it's much less than 30 because of the prorated amount.
That's what I mean, yeah.
I'm sorry, was it Linda
Yes.
or
No, Louise.
Louise?
Hi, Linda, do you know if they accept all types of insurance, including like private pay?
I don't know any thing about the interworkings that
Okay,
that detailed, but you can always call AHM.
okay. Because sometimes different insurances, sometimes they have issues with them. My daughter has, actually, she just deals with Husky. And it's so much easier, but it's different. Depends on, how much people have as far as money wise.
Well, being a town agency, I don't know if they really have much of a choice. I don't know though.
I don't know either. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious because sometimes there's insurance issues that, really fall into play with some of their income. But just curious.
Other questions or anything for Linda? Okay, hearing none, unless anybody has any motions they want to entertain to pass this, which I think most of us decided we need a little more time to review. I guess let's move on to our next agenda item, which is the approval of the meeting minutes. So I just want to make a comment here before we begin our discussion. I personally would not recommend approval of the second set of meeting minutes. There's an error in the header. The date is wrong. It says Wednesday, January 15th, 2022. It threw me a little bit, but I think it just should be Wednesday, January 25th, 2022. So we should get that fixed before we approve those meeting minutes. But if anybody wants to make a motion to approve the January 18th, 2023 special meeting minutes, we could do that now.
I'll make that motion, sure. Let's approve the one that's right.
Okay, we'll approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Louise. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Now,
Okay,
Mark,
abstention.
in order to push it, we just don't take action?
We just don't take action. Yeah, and then
Okay.
we'll continue it on next meeting's agenda.
Mark, you can also approve it with a correction. I mean,
Yeah, I guess that's true, actually. Can we? We've done that before. I don't know if we've done it here, but
Yeah, I mean, that seems the simpler option. If that's the
fair.
only error.
I was very hesitant when I looked at it, and then I realized that it was just that one typo was probably all that was happening. And the footer is correct, so, and everything else that I saw looked correct. Does anybody want to make a motion to amend those meeting minutes and approve as amended?
I'll make the motion to amend the meeting minutes as outlined to
Okay.
correct the date and pass them as amended.
I'll also
second.
note,
The date
Okay.
should be the 25th, did you say?
yeah, it should say January 25th, and it should say 2023.
Oh, yeah.
It says 2022.
Every
Which is-
January, man, every January. Getting the new date in your head is.
Well, there's actually not a year on the previous meeting minutes, but it's in the footer, so I didn't really raise the issue.
Okay,
It's a self-evident
I'll second
value,
Bill's
but
motion.
This one should be corrected since it's in the header.
I second the motion.
Okay,
Mhm.
any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, and we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is liaison reports. Does anybody have any liaison reports? Linda already talked about AHM, anything from CIP or other?
CIP was canceled. There was nothing on the agenda. We had nothing to discuss apparently. So nothing to report.
Okay. I think that's probably the only liaison report we have other than HAM.
Yeah.
Okay. Move on to agenda item 9, which is the board open discussion. Anybody have anything they want to bring before the board?
I'll just mention what I briefly messaged you about, Mark, earlier.
Yeah.
When we were doing our meeting schedule, we should just put something on the agenda for our next meeting to discuss the April 19th date, because right as we were passing it, Valerie pointed out that that conflicts with the Board of Ed meeting. So the Board of Ed members wouldn't be able to attend that meeting. And given that it's the public hearing, or we're anticipating that it's the public hearing, we might want to try to shift that date. So let's talk about that next meeting. That was just what I wanted to bring up.
Yep, thank you. I was going to actually bring the same thing up. It's a good point. I think we need to make sure that we can accommodate the public generally for that. So, all right. Further things, Bill? I think you said raise your hand.
Just a note that I still am on the zoning board of appeals. Most months we don't have anything, but I think there's one coming up.
I saw one conflict there where we're talking about it. I wondered if it would have impacted you. Yeah.
So I don't have anything yet, but I think I heard some rumbling that there was going to be an appeal next month. So I just don't know if I will be on the next meeting or not.
Okay.
Sometimes you're really short, and is it okay to jump in late to these meetings if we were to finish?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it is. I mean, we're almost never at risk of having a quorum, so we should be fine. You just wouldn't have any vote for anything that happened when you weren't participating there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
That's another thing, Bill. I mean, if next meeting, if you're certain that there's one coming up, you can let us know. And if there's the ability to shift it, well, we can ponder, you know?
Yeah, we can look at it. Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, these meeting schedules, we do them on Wednesdays in part. I'm kind of the fly in the ointment a lot of the time because of my schedule with my kids, but I can usually do Thursdays instead.
Okay, great. And the only thing I was going to see if it was possible to move, because the dates are already scheduled. You put in that piece of paper every year with the dates. So if my board would be able to meet at 6 or something like that, be done by 7 and meet this meeting, but I'll address that when we get there.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Okay, anything else among the board members? Okay, hearing nothing, we'll move on to agenda item, which is 10, public speak. Eric, do you want to see if anybody has any input?
Sure. Go right around the room. First on my list, Ann Cremay or Jerry Cremay.
Nothing. We're all set. Thank you.
Okay. Valerie Bruno.
Hi. First, Robert, thank you, and to the rest of the board for considering the April 19th date. I would love us to be able to have those meetings not on the same night if it is a public forum, so thank you. Congratulations to Brian Briggs for being a new member. Linda, I would like to stress the services that the school gets from AHM are beyond helpful, and they have picked up a lot of the slack, as you said, in the community where we just don't have enough resources to address the needs of the children and their families. And so I've worked a lot with Tressa, and I have to say they are definitely servicing Andover very well. And she does a lot with our insurance consortium. Tressa does over there, which is just an added bonus. It's a plus. And thank you for tabling the discussion on that policy. And hopefully I look forward to the Board of Ed and the finance director in our building being able to weigh in on that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Valerie.
Okay, next up, Brian Briggs.
No, thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Okay. And the last person, Teresa. Mrs. Smith, how
You
about
can
that?
call me Terry, Eric.
Fair enough. Sorry.
Lisa's a
Late
little
night.
formal for me. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I look forward to talking to you all again soon.
Okay, thank you.
Unless I'm missing somebody, that looks like it, Mark.
Yeah, I agree. I'm seeing a Steve on there. Steve is Linda. Okay, never mind. Got it. When I'm looking at the list, I don't see your picture, so I'm like, all right, who is that? Okay, I think that is everybody. Thank you, Eric. Our next agenda item is adjournment. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Bill.
Okay, Bill raises his hand, making a motion to adjourn the meeting. Any discussion?
I'll second
All right, thank you. I jumped getting ahead of myself.
it.
Now any discussion?
Appreciate the streamlining, Mark.
Yeah. Well, I'm out of order, but you know,
You're out of line.
my
but
heart
you're
was
right.
in the right place.
You're right.
Hearing no discussion, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Eric.
See you
Valerie,
soon.
Terry, everybody, Brian, welcome. And you all have a good, safe week.